Today was shaping up to be a day. I don't know how long this stream is going to go or how it will go. We've got a contractor again showing up sometime between 10:30 and 11:30. So that will be kind of disruptive. And there something leaked down here. I came down and there's just like a big stream of water down along the side of the basement here. So one of the reasons I'm late is that I had to go down and go find 5 or 6 towels, which are now sitting on the floor, getting soaking wet. Um, that's not a particularly good thing. I really need to find. Oh, I need to find some fans. I need to pick up the towels and put them through the washer, I guess, because they've been on the floor soaking up water. I don't know what leaked. Um, it could be the humidifier. It had been running, I mean, just fine, but sometimes that it just decides to leak, and that might have been what happened. Um, so at some point, when I know that people get up, well, I hate to hit them with that first thing in the morning. Like I just got hit with it first thing in the not the first thing in the morning. This wasn't the first thing in the morning because I had done other things this morning. But one of the things, yet it's still morning, is coming down and finding all that water on the floor in the basement, which was pretty unpleasant. Um, and tracking down towels and trying to soak it up, and so it's not getting everywhere yet. And it doesn't look like it ruined anything much. There was some boxes got wet, but the contents seemed to be okay. I got wet cardboard and had to get rid of. Yeah, it's just been that kind of thing. So I'm not really sure how this is going to go. I think when other people are up and moving around and doing things, that I might take a break and let them know about the contractor coming, and I'll save the leak until a little bit later to give them an opportunity to get used to just one thing instead of 3 things all happening at once. Because it doesn't much matter. I mean, whether they find out about it immediately or a little bit later, it really isn't going to matter very much, just in terms of anything other than how upset they're going to be about it. Okay, well, I'm looking at these parts here. Yeah, parts is parts, right? Of the engine. I keep moving. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that happens. Is see, is I moved the instructions, and the instructions bumped into the parts. And fortunately, it didn't mess them up too much. I can still see where they're supposed to go. Well, today is just going to be filing and sanding. I did some assembly, and this is going to be filed and sanded. Okay, these are the engine blocks, and these are all the pieces, all these pieces that go onto the engine. And what you end up with when all of this is done is this. Okay, and then step 2 is like all the brackets and holders and closures and stuff that go around the engine. And and then behind the engine goes the whole landing gear assembly. This is the left main undercarriage assembly, and then there's the right main undercarriage assembly, and then you can see at some point the engine with its attachments gets attached, and then the whole thing just gets covered up like that. So at some point after the engine is done, I want to see how this gets covered up. What I might end up doing because I've talked about this before, how disappointing it is to do all this detail on the engine. Okay. It's very highly detailed, and then cover it up and it's never seen again. It's really kind of disappointing. So what I've been thinking about doing is building one and keeping it outside. And what I've thought about doing is seeing, what would be really cool is if I could get these parts for the engine. Okay. If I could just buy those without buying like a whole kit and ruining it. Um, it'd be really cool to just do that and have have this whole assembly or most of it just on display separately, because it seems to be a shame to spend like all of this work here just gets disappeared. It does. It gets disappeared inside the model. So why do it? Why am I spending hours and hours filing and sanding and assembling and painting and everything if it just ends up gone? I do not know. I don't understand. But that's what I'm gonna be doing. Is for better or worse, I'll be filing and sanding these engine parts. What I probably should do, probably really should do, since they're fairly small parts, is I should get another box, which I have. Another one of these, and do the filing and sanding over this. Oh yeah, I've got a bag of stuff here. I did go to the hobby shop, and I found the one of the paint colors. It's an important paint color called interior green. Make the instructions are really clear that at some point you have to use interior green. And those of you, if anybody out there is like a serious modeler, right? Um, you know, you know the story behind interior green and why that is a specific kind of green that's specified in the instructions, the painting instructions. Um, but I didn't know that because I am I build models, but I haven't ever been like a serious military modeler. In fact, yeah, I mean I haven't built a military. I've never really painted a military plane until I did the Pogo. The ones I built when I was a kid are just you know never they were just glued together, cemented together. But it says interior green. So I thought, well, maybe I should find out. I'll tell this story for those of you who aren't professional modelers, and everybody else who is, just scratch your head and go, duh. It may, make duh sounds like how stupid, of course. But if you're not, like I'm not, then I discovered the story. There is a story behind the color interior green. And there is in fact a very specific color called interior green. Um, So the insides of cockpits and landing gear bays like this, okay, the insides of planes were painted a specific color, and every Air Force has different ones. I think like the RAF had gray, and Navy had a different color, but the Army Air Corps had just different kinds of greens. And I think what I read is that a common color was zinc chromate, but different manufacturers and sometimes, I mean, different places that manufactured the same plane, even not the same plane, but the same model of plane. Okay, um, would sometimes they wouldn't all use the same green, and so in 1944, I believe it was, the Army said specifications that everybody who made any of their planes would use the same color called interior green, and they gave them all a formula for it. It's like that. So I didn't know these things because, like I said, if you were a real World War II military buff and a real modeler who makes a lot of models, and you knew all these things, you would know exactly the right colors for everything, and how they managed to become that way and that sort of thing. But I had to learn those things, and I did, and I found out about interior green, and of course there are paint manufacturers who very carefully replicate, I mean, exactly the right color. Kind of like airplane restorers, museums and things that restore aircraft to their original state. They're always very careful to originally match, sometimes using the original materials to make the match, that kind of thing. So I got interior green. Okay. And not every uh, paint manufacturer, model paint manufacturer uh, makes this color. Like I found out that Tamiya makes a color called cockpit green, which isn't quite the same. Viejo makes one. They don't call it interior green. It has a different name, but they actually make one. The model the model shop I went to didn't have that, but this other manufacturer, um, Mission Models. I'm not, promoting anything. I'm just telling you what I found out. Is that they this manufacturer, like many others, spends a lot of time, um, a lot of time replicating the colors of paints. And this says, it's supposed to be used for an airbrush, which I won't do. I want to be brushing it on. I hope it works okay. Um, yeah, there's a price label on here is covering up words that may or may not be important in terms of the use of the paint. I don't know. Let me see. Take the label off. See what's under it. There's words under it. So a lot of these paints are made for use, of course, you airbrush use, and I really wish I could do that. It would just make everything better, but I I don't. I've told that story many times about just every time I used an airbrush or tried to use an airbrush, it was just a huge disaster of a mess. Everything was just a huge mess, and then I ended up spending just large amounts of time cleaning it. Okay, let's see if this says something. It's water-based scale modeling, matte finish, airbrush colors. Mhm. For use with all airbrush types. Works great. Sprayed directly on from the bottle or reduce. Um, well, I'm going to test it to see if it works by brushing it. I don't know. If it doesn't, then maybe I'll be spending most of the summer learning how to use an airbrush again. I don't know. Anyway, that what I wanted to do was to say that I learned some stuff that other people who really know what they're doing when they're building military models, of course, knew that from the very beginning. They just did, but I didn't. So there. So I'm going to keep working on the engine here. All of this stuff I'll be spending hours and hours and hours building this engine and making it hopefully look really good so that it will then be totally buried inside the pylon, never to be seen again. I was kind of hoping that there was a hatch that would open so that you could see the engine, that it would be visible um, after it was all assembled, but that it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Well, I'm going to put one together, and as I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one together all the way through, to this stage, all the way through to step 9, and then not do the other side. Probably do the left main landing gear assembly because um, number 3, number 4 starts with left, and then right it starts with number 6. So there. So let's just say that today has been not a very good day so far. There's this huge mess here down in the basement that needs to be cleaned. At some point, I need to get rid of the soaking wet towels and get a fan down here and start drying it off because it's going to be all musty and unpleasant. It's already smelling musty. The water was, I don't know how long the water was down here. Well, that's the story du jour. We used to have half an hour talking about interior green and presence of puddles on the basement floor. On Wednesday, I was able to get these parts done, and I assembled them, and I got parts. I got H29 cleaned up. So I guess I, I'm gonna just start at the top. I'm gonna start up here and go. Why not go left to right across the top? And there's 2 of everything because there's 2 engines on this plane. So there, those are the parts. Those are some parts. As I had mentioned several times already in my repetitive fashion, we have a contractor coming sometime between now and maybe 11. And when I hear telltale signs of that, I'm going to take a break and get that set up, and hopefully I'll come back and continue working, or I'll come back and tell you that I'm not going to continue working, depending on things. The other thing I will do is I'm going to take all the soaked towels. When I take that break, I'm going to take the opportunity to take all of the soaked towels that are sitting on the floor, sopping up the water that was on the floor, take those upstairs and get get them in the laundry, I think, and then bring down more towels and maybe a fan, which I hope I can find one, um, and get that running down here. You'll hear it in the background, but I would I really would just as soon have have this water not. I'd like to have it dried up. That's what I was. That's what I was trying to say, and not getting around to it. So I'm taking off the screw attachment points here. There's excess plastic attached to it, and as I'm doing that, I'm also going to lightly sand the whole thing so that it has the same texture. I've talked about that many times before, so I'll just repeat what I'm doing. Do I like if I just sanded that part there where the sprue was attached, then when this was painted, it would look like there would be a place that would have a different surface texture. And these sprue marks, you can see them and feel them. They're pretty obvious because there's a discoloration of the plastic. Just sand it until the slightly different color is gone, and then it's gone. And yes, this would go faster if I used the coarser grit. But then if I used the coarser grit, then I'd have to use this fine grit to sand out all the sanding marks from the coarse grit. You've heard about that compromise endless times, endless, just constant repetition. It's just a little more difficult because it's got a tab here. Let's work around that. As you can tell, I am not particularly happy about the fact that there was a little bit of a flood here in the basement, probably last night and early this morning. Not the kind of thing that, you know, I didn't go to bed last night saying, what I really want, what I really would like is when I come down to the basement tomorrow. What I really want is when I come down to the basement tomorrow to do all sorts of filing and sanding because it's so exciting for everybody to watch. And I talk about that and how I discovered interior green, you know. But what I really want is I want big puddles. I want puddles to greet me. And I don't mean like a dog named Puddles. That's kind of a cute name for a dog, isn't it? Especially a puppy, because when you get a puppy, you actually you do get puddles. Yep. See how well I can even hold on. So when I'm saying is that when I turned in for the night, turned in, I don't know, that's another weird phrase. When I went to bed last night, I didn't go, you know, I really hope when I wake up tomorrow morning and go down to the basement to start the stream that I find puddles all over the floor. I guess fortunately nothing seems to be really damaged. There's some boxes that are wet that I was able to move most of them out of the water. The contents seem to be okay. Except for one that's up kind of on a shelf. It's got tile in it. When you get something tiled, the floor is tiled, there's always some extra pieces, not always, sometimes there are extra pieces left over and you hang on to them in case one is damaged maybe and you want to replace it, or and then you never do. They just sit around until you got your estate sale, right? And then there's a third of a box of tile that doesn't do anything but match your kitchen floor, and it's been hasn't been made in 25 years, and so unless there's exactly the amount that you need for a project, you go to the estate sale and you go, oh, there's 14 pieces of tile that's and I need 12, so that will give me some extra in case there's some breakage. That's just perfect. You know, that doesn't happen. They just sit there and they take up space, and then water gets on them, and the box is damp, and the tiles aren't hurt because they're just tile. But now there's a wet box full of tile that is kind of useless. It's one of those things that probably, if we ever did a serious cleaning, right? What's on the shelf and why? I don't know. There's a box with pieces of tile. Does this tile match anything? No. Would we ever use it for anything? I don't know. You never know when you need 14 pieces of tile. You never know. You might, and then if we got rid of it, you'd say, in order to get this project done, what we really need are 14 pieces of tile of just this size and color. Where where would we find that? And you go, well, we used to we used to have that, but a year and a half ago we said, well, we'd never use this, and so we just threw it away, just adding to the landfill. But now the box is wet and probably going to get all moldy. Going to have to clean. There's stuff on top of it and around it. Just the thing is, you get things put away on shelves, and not with the expectation that they're going to get wet and everything will have to come off the shelf and moved around. I guess it's one of those things where, gee, I was wondering what I was going to be doing today after sanding and filing for you know 2.5 hours or something on a Friday morning and early afternoon. It's like, oh, what would I do with the rest of my day? I don't know. I guess I'll just waste my life away. But no, I know what you'll be doing. You'll be cleaning up after a minor flood in your basement. Now I have a purpose in life, for at least for the rest of the day, that I didn't know I had before. That it's like the song from What Life of Brian, always look on the bright side of life. That's the bright side. I now have an extended purpose in life, at least for several more hours yet today after I stop doing this. There's an old guy ranting about what to do. I guess I don't know if that's entertaining or not. Probably not. So if you didn't know, I was being sarcastic about going to bed last night, saying, "Boy, I really want to wake up to have puddles in the basement that I I need to sop up and dry, and hopefully nothing is. Hopefully it'll dry without anything being damaged. Yep, some more sandpaper here. I'm going to be going through a lot of this. I might have to go. I don't know how much more of this grit and sandpaper grit I've got around. I'll find out as I am quickly getting the impression that I'll be going through a lot of it. I wasn't going to bother everybody else with the flood in the basement, but I've got 5 or 6 soaked towels on the floor that I really do need to get out of here. I mean, they're not. It's not healthy to be sitting here with all of that water just sitting around, evaporating in the air. So when I'm done with this piece, I'm done with H9. I'm almost done with this side. When I'm finished with H9, I'm going to take a break and get those towels out of here and bring new ones down, and maybe a fan. Even I don't have the pop filter on the microphone anymore, and so with the fan running, you'll be hearing that. But I would rather annoy you. Sorry, guys, everybody paying attention to this if you are. I would rather annoy you with the sound of a fan running in the background um, than just having the water sitting there on the floor. So the fan will evaporate it, and it will just get into the air. Okay, so it's not like it's disappearing. Water isn't going away, but at least I can get the fan on places where I haven't been able to sop it up with the towels. And then later today, you'll start the process of investigating the source of the water that was on the floor, and hopefully, making it not happen again. This, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong with how I'm using the sandpaper, but it fills up really quickly and then stops stops being abrasive. It seems like I'm going through a whole lot more of this than I should. My experience was it was confirmed by the hobby shop yesterday. It was, talking about getting parts out and sanding, and they said, yeah, building a model at least half of the time it takes to build a model is just sanding. Precision molded plastic parts, right? You get precision molded plastic parts, and then essentially just spend half of your time improving the precision. the big problem is that they have to be attached to screws. They're not molded individually. They're molded on these screws. They're the trees of other plastic, and the attachment points are a problem. They need to be sanded so that they're gone. Okay, well, those two parts are done. I'm going to take a break now because I need to I need to get these wet towels out of here. I really do. So I'm going to take a batch of wet towels out upstairs and get them in the laundry and bring some dry ones down, or better yet, maybe a fan. So I'm going to put the brake thing on, and I'll be back in just a bit. Well, I got some towels and I got a fan. I could use another fan, but at least I've got it going on location where I wasn't able to sop it up with a towel very well. And I was able to inform people who needed to be informed that someone will be showing up sometime soon. And now I'm going to go to H6 and do some more filing and sanding. Yeah, okay. So the screw was attached back here. That was actually not a bad place to put it. Um, I need to see how are these attached? Okay, they go on like that. The reason I'm looking at this is because they have molding circles, little circles built in. What were they? You got a light sanding that'll come off. Okay, on the bottom, that's not a problem. That's invisible. Okay, so there's these circles that show up on molded plastic parts like all the time. That's all you ever see are circles. Fortunately, somebody thought he had a little bit on these particular pieces, and they put the screw attachment on a place where it's relatively easy to file it and sand it away. And they put the little circles, which are a standard feature of any molded plastic and has nothing at all to do with the actual size and shape of the piece. They put those in a place where they are not visible. That's unusual. I've seen this happen even on good quality models. Not those molding circles. Like, oh, let's put them right up front and center, right up there where everybody can see them. And then the best ones are raised above the surface so that they can be sanded down to the surface of the part. The worst ones are like these, where they're inset into the surface, and the only way to get two ways to get rid of them. Well, one is to just ignore them and say, "Oh, look, there's a circle. Great." Is to fill them in and sand the filler. And the other way is to sand the entire part until it uh, until they're at the same level. And fortunately, here, yeah, there's seams. You can just barely see them. This is not badly molded, but there are the seams, a little raised ridge, okay, where the two parts of the mold came together. I get the light sanding probably on almost all the surfaces after I get rid of the sprue attachment. Now, I think yeah, I've said this before. I'm going to just keep repeating myself. In this particular model, the screw attachments are really, there's a lot of plastic. They're very big. And I think that was intentional so that the parts didn't accidentally break off like in transit, right? Because you don't want them to break off because then it could seriously damage the part by breaking off inside the part as opposed to breaking off outside the part. But it does increase the amount of time it takes to get rid of them because they're pretty big. Well, what I've accomplished today so far is that I got 6 towels very wet, sopping up a leak that happened down here in the basement. And I moved a fan that you can probably hear running in the background that is drying off some parts, hopefully, that I wasn't able to towel up very well. Hopefully, drying it, kind of, at least so it's, not puddled. Nikki and Lexi got back from their trip very late Monday, Tuesday. Today's Friday. Wednesday. They got back Wednesday. And they're jet lagged. They said, "Oh no, the jet lag's not too bad." And it is real jet lag. Well, it is kind of jet lag. Let's just say it's sort of jet lag because they came in on a jet and then took a train from the other place. But still, their clocks are they're really different. They're three almost 4 hours because, well, I guess technically at least just 3 hours. So for them, 11:30 is 8:30. So 11 o'clock was 8 o'clock. So yeah, woke up and it's almost noon, and for them it's early morning. So stayed up late because 11 o'clock at night felt like 8 o'clock at night, right? but it takes a while to recover from that. I think I'm losing a little detail here. Next, the next finest bit that I got for the 1000 to 600, and I think that probably would work. But I don't know. I really don't like spending a lot of time sanding away scratch marks. I don't really like spending a lot of time doing this at all, but it is what it is. See, if this was a legitimate modeling show, you know, like the point was to show you how to build models, that kind of thing, then this would be recorded, and you'd see me starting this, and I'd talk maybe about how the pieces fit and where the circle was and what needs to and whether I needed to sand the circle away, which I don't need to do here. Um, and that, but you wouldn't see this. You wouldn't see all of the sanding because it'd be edited out. So I'd be sanding for an hour, and you'd see maybe 2 or 3 minutes of it. But that's not this. That's not what this is. This is just there's just a camera and a microphone, and me doing live action stuff with no editing out. You get to see every excruciating second of the sanding away of screw attachments. The next one's going to be really hard. This one's not. I mean, the first one wasn't bad because it was just on a smooth surface. This isn't too bad. It's on the corner of a smooth surface. The next one is they're really delicate little thin pieces. There's a lot of them. And you need to have a little bit of pressure on the sandpaper in order for it to, work. But doing that on a really thin little part is inviting the opportunity to break it. But it needs to be done, and so that's what I'll do next. Is the first two of 8 tiny little, I guess they were pipes, maybe fuel, maybe exhaust. I'm not sure what the role was. It could be fuel, it could be coolant. They don't look like exhaust. No, this just isn't giving up. I wonder if I'm sanding it in the wrong place. I got the sandpaper maybe in the wrong spot. was. It was too close to the edge, maybe. Yeah, yeah. If you sand the part in the right place, it goes better. Still, still tiny. Okay. Right? Just not. It's just not. This little bit is just not cooperating. It looked like it would be easy and simple, and it's just not cooperating. I know there's somebody out there saying, you can get these tiny little power sanders that would just and it'd be done. And I'd go, yep, it would. But I go, "Bloop," and I'd have a huge gouge, and it would be done, but not done quite the way you were thinking when you said it would be done. Because, um, yeah, it would be the same reason I can't use an airbrush is that I just can't get it to work without a problem. And it would definitely be a problem. So I do it slow. I do this slow and tedious version. What is this? What's kind of interesting is, so I go upstairs and I've got 6 sopping wet towels in my arms, right? And I say I need more towels and I need a fan, and nobody says, "Oh, why? What's up?" There's no curiosity at all about what what the disaster was that required all the drying material. Oh well, okay, that's about as good as it's going to get. Well, tonight we record another episode of our Dungeons and Dragons show, and I want to remind everybody that that's the important thing. This particular stream is just I don't know what it is really. I was going to stop doing this because it's like, why? what am I accomplishing here other than I'm using up like 9 hours of my life every week building models? I mean, in some ways it's okay because when I first retired, now, how long ago was it? I can hardly remember. It's many, many years ago, almost 10 years ago, I think, that I actually retired now at retirement age. I retired at retirement age, which tells you that I'm well past retirement age now. I'm at the I'm at the age where I should know better, but no. Um, so I started buying models in anticipation of retiring, and I thought, well, what would I do with my time since I'm not going to be working like 50 some hours a week, and I have all this time. And then it turned out that there was always something to do during that time, and you spent a lot of time wondering how, when one is working 50 hours a week, any of that ever got done. The answer is probably most of that didn't get done. But what I was starting to say and then wandering off was that I guess maybe this is okay for me to be doing because that's what I was planning to be doing when I retired, is spending endless hours. I didn't realize how many hours. I have to say this, that um, I hadn't built models really except for, you know, one or like two different things between when I was maybe a sophomore in high school and the time I retired. And what I remembered is that, they you get a model kit and cement it together and maybe put some rubber bands around it to hold it, you know, maybe paint it. I remember from building the Fink models when I discovered that it's possible to fill in the cracks. I actually filled them in by just putting layers of paint on them. I didn't have any filler. The seams between the parts so that the seams didn't show. The models look a lot better when the seams don't show where the parts are attached. But I don't remember. I never did. I didn't have like all this sandpaper and files and stuff, all the screw attachments. I think I just scraped them off with a single edge razor blade. I think that's all I did was I just scraped them away. Um, so when I was thinking about building models, I just bought a lot of them because I thought, well, yeah, they wouldn't take too long to make. I used to build models that, at most models would take a weekend. But now I've discovered that it's possible to spend 15 hours doing nothing but sanding down the parts for step one of the construction of the model. And as I've said, if I were able to use a power sander, this would go way faster. I am kind of tempted to buy one just to see. They're not terribly expensive. They're not cheap either. Like $30 or $40, which is quite a bit. Hi, who joined in chat? I don't have my chat screen up, so I have to come up and look. what's red and smells like green paint? I don't know. What is interior green paint for the inside of the cockpit of the model? Okay, I give. What is it? Good. I appreciate you joining in on chat and coming up with a bad joke. I could use a joke today, the way things are going, which is not well. Things are going not well today. Not necessarily well, in terms of the model, but just in terms of like real life because of the flood that I walked into. It wasn't really a flood in that it was just a leak somewhere and there's water all over the floor. Not all of it. Just on a There was a lot of water. I had to sop it up with towels. I got started late. I've got wet towels in the wash machine. I've got wet towels on the floor. I got a fan trying to dry it. Everything smells like wet cardboard because there is a pile of wet cardboard there. Um, the rest of the family is all grumpy. So my grumpiness, at least I know why I'm grumpy. I'm grumpy because of the mess down here on the basement floor. I don't know why everybody else is grumpy, but they are. There's something to look forward to when I'm done here is going up and engaging with grumpy people. But thanks for joining, for coming in. And you need to finish your bad joke because I need to know what's red and smells like green paint. And for some reason, these are just not cleaning up. I hope the rest of the day goes better. I was actually planning to do more painting. I'm repainting a patio table. Now that I spent yesterday, believe it or yeah, that's what I did yesterday. Is I did use a power sander to sand down the top of the table because it's really old. It's almost like an heirloom now. I'd like I was actually thinking of getting rid of it, but our daughter said, "No, I remember that from when I was a kid. Every year you'd put another coat of red paint on it, and that was the thing that we did." But the coats of red paint started blistering and cracking and things. So I spent a good deal of time with an orbital sander sanding the top of the table, and it's okay, but it's not like new. I would have to strip off or have sandblasted at least 15 layers of red paint, at least, maybe more. Because I remember painting it almost every year. I'd put a new coat of red paint on it, at least every two, which tells you that it's been around a while, probably 30 years. So I sanded it and then primed it. So sitting out in the driveway with primer on it. I was thinking I have red paint. I was going to paint it last year and I didn't. Or for reasons that have to do with this construction project I keep referencing, that is almost but never quite finished. Okay, well, H6 is done. Now I'm going to move on to H11. These are 2 of 8. As you can see, they're just really tiny and they're pretty fragile. And there's really big sprue attachments here. And I need to get rid of those without breaking the part. And I got to do that 8 times. I'm going to file these really close, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I was holding it there and it was bending. I have to be really careful where I hold this. I can't hold it away from where I'm putting the pressure from the file. No, the thing that I need to do after the stream today, whenever I decide to finish early or late, I don't know. The thing I need to do is identify the source of the leak that got water all over not all over. I keep saying that got water on the basement floor where there isn't supposed to be water. There isn't actually any place on the basement floor where there is supposed to be water. So that was kind of a dumb thing to say. But um, definitely not supposed to be water on the basement floor. And there was quite a bit of it. And there's several boxes. Most of the stuff we put into plastic, these plastic containers. There's the little ridge there. That always shows up the seam between the two parts of. Is there 3? Seriously, there's 3, and then there's a little ridge around it, the whole thing. It's actually a pretty big ridge, and I have to do that without destroying the detail, the little junction details. Okay, yeah, there's 8 of these. Great, and I remember that. Yeah, they're attached to 3 different points. This is when I start despairing of actually ever getting very far on this model because of what it's taking to get. Yeah, I know. And what you're seeing here is that like a third of the time, what I'm doing is just trying to figure out how to hold it without really getting anything done other than trying to figure out how to hold it without Oh yeah, the little seam, the little ridge around the part is really obvious. It seems to come off pretty easily, but still, it'd be better if it weren't there. This I bet is where if I could control it well enough, the power sander would work really well at getting the 95% of it off. I complain a lot about this because I'm an old grumpy guy, and it's something to complain about. It's a safe thing to complain about too. It isn't like there isn't a lot of stuff to complain about in the world, right? There's a lot of things one could complain about, but this is a very safe thing to complain about because it's right there in front of you. It's very obvious why I'm complaining. Why is there all this excess plastic here? Um, Marring the surface of this pipe, whatever it is. Why are there little lines along the whole thing because of where the parts of the mold didn't quite fit together? Oh, geez, they put it right on. I don't know if you can see it, but there's these little ridges here, little raised parts that represent maybe junctions between the pipes, maybe. And the screw is right on top of one of them. It's going to make it next to impossible to get off without harming that detail there. But as I keep saying, what difference does it make? All of this gets buried inside the pylon anyway, and nobody's going to see any of it. We'll be spending all this time getting the parts cleaned up and fit and painted and, getting rid of the little mold seams and screw attachments and everything. And then it's buried inside the model. Grump, grump. I guess at least you can see my struggles here, and I am kind of struggling with this. At least it's on camera. Okay, well, I need to go over this entire thing because there are these lines. Seam lines. Creates this little ridge on both sides of the part, which makes it look like a molded plastic part instead of a real pipe. It just doesn't seem to be cleaning up. I can't tell. It's like, you know, the only good thing is that these are going to be painted a flat gray color. And so the little remnants of the seams, but I can still see them now. Where the mold left a ridge. Just, wow, it's really big. See, when I put my, yeah, yeah, that's a real issue there. The two halves of the mold on these little pipes didn't line up. And so when I look at it here, it leaves a big ridge. I mean, really, I expected better. I wonder, because the surface is so small, that maybe these scratches will, maybe just filing this is the best thing to do. At least I can get into the corners here. If I were to look at this through magnification, it would look pretty rough. So I've only got, after I finish this one, which is not yet not yet happening, I've got 7 more, pretty much like it. Yeah, it's pretty obvious that the two halves of the mold here on these pipes did not come together well. I'm beginning to think that I will be, if I can, it's just taking forever because of just the way that the part is. It's just really being difficult. And it's a part like this that's really delicate, difficult to hold. That's where the flaw is the greatest. Of course it is. Of course, this would be where it's really, really bad, and where it would show significantly. You can't hold it, and it's delicate. And excess plastic right here, screw attachment because that's where they decided to attach it. And using a file because I can't get the sandpaper into those angles like that, into the little edges. Well, I don't know how long I can keep this up without just being totally frustrated by it. I just have to be honest. I'm losing my patience, and that's not a good thing when I'm dealing with tiny little fragile parts that are not looking very good without a lot of filing and filing and filing. It's weird though about the ridge. It's only on one side. It isn't like the two halves of the mold are misaligned. It's just like one half of one is just not put on correctly. I'm not sure what's going on. Because on this side there was this very obvious ridge along the whole thing. On the other side, there isn't. And the same was true up here. It's almost like one one half of the mold was slightly larger than the other. I mean, it really is looking like that. It's beginning to look like after 7 or 8 hours of this. And I will say once again, the really frustrating part about this is that all of this stuff gets hidden. So all of this gets hidden inside the pylon. That's why I really want to keep one of these engines. I really do. I really want to keep one of these engines outside the plane. I'm going to ask, I'm going to have, what I'm going to do, this is a plan. I don't know if I'll be able to do this or not. What I want to do is build one of these, okay, because there's two, one on each side. It's a two-engine plane, right? Um, build one of these and find out which parts of all of these parts are actually visible once it's put together, and ask Alexis to fabricate replicas on a 3D printer. Like I know, like this part will be visible. There's a lot of detail on it. But I think the rosin printer will come out with something that's really close, really, really close. And I know that this part, that little rod part, that's where the propeller attaches, the propeller shaft, that will show. I'm not sure that much of anything else does. Out of all of these parts, I'm not sure that much of any of them will actually show once it's put together. So, although it's inefficient, I'm going to go with inefficiency here and build one side. Okay, the of the engine and the landing gear and the stuff, all the stuff that goes inside the pylon. I'm going to build one side of it, and then as I'm test fitting it all, identify the parts that will actually be seen once it's assembled, and check to see whether it's possible to just like fake it. What I mean is, put the mounting pieces and stuff, the stuff around the engine, because there's stuff that goes around the engine, the cowling and radiator intake and that kind of thing. Um, round files here. And see if I can't, on the other pylon, not put the engine in at all, but just put the fabricated parts that are visible, which would be maybe four parts out of all of these. The best thing would be if there were um, opening hatches on the model that would open up to show the engine. But This model doesn't seem to have that. I feel like I'm doing microsurgery here. I guess that is what I'm doing. I'm doing. The ridge is really significant on the outside of this bit here. I don't know how long this has taken. It's taken forever just to get this little. The next one might be a little faster because now that I've done one, I know what I'm dealing with. I can't guarantee that. I'm not. There's no guarantee that the next one will be any faster than this. It's, it probably won't be any longer than this. I think this is acceptable. Yeah, the ridge along this piece, this is just as bad. It's got a huge ridge all along here. I really do think that what happened is that one part of the mold was bigger than the other. It really gives that impression. It's the inside, this part, and it has one, but it's not as pronounced. So there's probably, I don't know, it might be misalignment, or it might be missizing. Either way, so the part is just very messy. And then as for the screw is attached, which creates its own complexities. Yeah, just started. It just got quiet there. Ran out of things to whine about. Just repeating the same thing I've been saying over and over, which is that this is quite disappointing molding quality here on these parts. This might be easier against it. Yeah, it would be. I'm going to switch boxes. It's kind of dumb, but this has been painted silver. But just finding as I've been doing this now for a million hours, if I worked over one that wasn't painted, the contrast would be better. And I could see what I was doing a little bit better than not hardly being able to much see what I was doing at all. This is the one that's done. Yeah, I can tell it's done because there's it's a little better than this one. You feel it with your fingernail, you know it's not good. Okay. Well, I just don't know how far to go. It's better than it was. I can't. It's just hard for me to see and even feel. Right along here, just this huge, huge line of a ridge right along here, really bad. This whole side needs not just where the screws are attached, but the whole thing just has a very, you know, it doesn't look like a pipe. On Monday, I do plan to be back on Monday and Wednesday of next week. I have to check the dates. I think I'm here. I think I'll be here all week next week. Monday's the 1st. 135, yeah. I'll be here all week, but after that, after next week, I will be gone for about 3 weeks, um, going on yet another trip. I do have to say that my wife decides that we need to travel. In our retirement, we need to be traveling, and so I'm going to be doing that. We'll be going on a trip, and I'll be gone for, like I said, almost 3 weeks. So there will be a reminder next week about me being gone the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that. I will I will provide actual calendar dates, like numbers, dates of when I will be streaming and when I won't. The stream will not be ending. I will be resuming it after I return, and I'll probably be um, doing this, you know, filing down screws and serious flaws in the manufacturing process, filing and sanding, filing and sanding. I might as well just put that up as what are we doing today? Filing and sanding. What are we doing today? Filing and sanding. What are we doing today? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? So a real professional show, you know, actually a real professional show where people are actually making money at it, meaning that they are professionals, as opposed to this where I am definitely not making money, unless unless you were to go to patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons, patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons, and become a patron, and then there would be a little bit of money involved. I mean, if you wanted to, you could become a full sponsor of this. And if you, oh yeah, if you wanted to become a sponsor of this, if you think that advertising on this stream would be worthwhile, that's actually something you probably could do. I don't know how. You'd have to contact Alexis and Nikki by going to like one of those Discord or something and sending a message saying, "Hey, we'd really like to be a sponsor of your show. We'll give you tens of thousands of dollars of advertising." That's not much. There's only like four zeros in that, right? Five figures. If you display our logo and run little ads on the thing that's scrolling underneath Greg's head, while he's muttering on about having to sand away screw attachment points. That is a possibility. I mean, that could really be a thing you could do if you had something that you wanted to advertise and wanted, you know, to sponsor this. And then I could become a professional. I used to be a professional ages ago in that I actually had a job that paid me money. It was an okay job. I did it for like 30 years. I did the same job for like 30 years. That was actually a long time. I had some jobs before that. So I ended up working for that one job or another for maybe 40 years. That's a long time. You think about it. That's even longer than it takes to clean up a part on a model. Just to put it in perspective, it isn't so much that it might not have felt quite as long. I mean, those 40 years might not have felt quite as long as those last 2 hours of me trying to make this part look okay. Keeping in mind that after I'm done with this, there's six more like it that will eventually be have to be done. And that's something to look forward to, isn't it? Hmm. See, one good thing about you, if you're watching or listening to this, is that you can just stop. You can just say, I've had enough of this, and maybe come back again in a week or two to see if I've gotten down to, maybe done a few more, as opposed to me, who is in the situation of I, I can't, I can't get away from it. If I want it to get done, I have to keep doing this until it's done. You know, it's like I can't. It would be kind of nice if I'd say, enough of this. I'm just going to just turn off the stream now, and then maybe come back again in a couple of weeks and say, "Oh, look, it's done. Huh, how did that happen?" But no, that's not how this works for me. How this works for me is that I get to go, look at that. There's a ridge all the way along the outside of this pipe, and it needs to be filed away and then sanded lightly so that it looks like a pipe and not a piece of plastic with a ridge down the center of it. Knowing full well that at the end it's just going to look like plastic with paint on it. I mean, there really isn't any way around it, is there? It's a plastic model. It's going to end up looking like a model. There'll be no fooling anybody. One can say, "Oh, well, that's a pretty good model," okay, but it's still that's what it is. I am now convinced that what happened here is that one half of the mold was in fact a different size than the other. That's pretty annoying. Well, H22 is next. H22 is not one of these. That won't happen until Monday. There are 4 H22s. And as far as I can tell, they will not be nearly as painful as these have been. It's not painful. I mean, not physically painful. It's been emotionally painful. So this is what an H22 looks like. And each one has 1, 2, 3 screw attachments right along the edge where they need to be carefully done. And I think what I can do is file them. That might be the safest thing actually, is to file it right down to the edge and then give it a light sanding. Because I think I can control the file well enough and it's flat. See, that I can go along the edge without gouging it. If I would try to sand it, I could create an indent. You can run this along the surface of the edge. Yeah, this is kind of working okay. What am I feeling there? Am I feeling a little bump there? Hmm. I don't see it. Hmm. Okay. Oh, there. Hi, Who. Thanks for joining in right near the end. You missed me going on and on about the not quite flood, but leak down in the basement where I got a fan running, trying to help dry it up. I've got 8 towels that are soaked. I've got 4 boxes that are wet that need to be just gotten rid of. And then I need to find out what the source of the leak was. Probably the humidifier, which was running just fine until it didn't. But I'll do a flip as soon as I'm done with this one. Okay, there's one H22 completed. Here, get a thing to flip. Today I feel like doing living and not living. Let's see if I can just flip it in the box here. Not living, not living. Maybe I'll get a 5-to-1 today. 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1. I finally got a 5-to-1. It's been forever, and it's not living versus living. That seems really appropriate because today has been a day of in uninterrupted grumping because of the nature of the model and also the fact that there was a leak and there's 8 wet towels, 4 soaked boxes, and a bunch of water. Just a real mess. Something leaked. It gives the impression of being a humidifier. This has happened before. And yeah, so I'm down here in the cold and damp. What a world! What a there's a lot of plastic here, isn't there? Yeah. I didn't cut these very close to the part. I hope the rest of the day goes okay. I hope our session is good tonight. What was the thing? Yep. 5-to-1. My first ever after years of doing flips. 5-to-1. Not living versus living. Apropos of the moment. That's a great French word. Apropos. It just means appropriate to the time. It sounds cooler because it's French. like saying deja vu as opposed to, hey, I think this happened before. Well, yeah, filing and sanding. I'll be back Monday, Wednesday, and Friday next week. And what I'll be doing is, it looks like mostly filing and sanding is really what it's looking like. I might be able to get to the point where I can do some priming and painting. I really don't know. As I have said many, many times, I'll just keep repeating it because I don't have anything novel to say, so I'll just repeat what I've been saying. Is um, all of this work on the engine detail, as far as I can tell, gets lost. It gets covered up. And so I really, really do want to try to keep one of these two engines um, as a display on the side, you know, to display it next to the model because it's taking a lot of work. And somebody spent a fair amount of time designing and making molds and, you know, kept finding the detail and creating the design and the molds and making the parts. I mean, not just building the parts, but actually making the parts for something that's going to disappear. So there's two of these because it's a twin engine plane, and I'm going to do one of them and find out just exactly how much it disappears and whether it's possible. I'm hoping it is, whether it's possible to fabricate replica parts for the few parts that actually show and assemble them in a way that looks exactly how it should look when the model is assembled, that is to say, hidden under the pylon, okay, that it looks just like that. And you would never know that there was no engine inside because it's all covered up. That's what I'm going to try to do. And if I actually remember, I should try to see if maybe somebody just has one of these kits that's partially built. I mean, that would be pretty good if there was a kit that was just partially built, um, and then abandoned, and they just wanted to sell it for parts or inexpensive, or if it's possible just to get like bits of the engine, the parts that show. That would be a that would be one thing. I have to remember to actually do that though. I mean, do that meaning looking to see if there's parts available. Well, it's getting close to being time to wrap up. I think I might be able to go on to H15 after I do these H22s. These are going fairly quickly because it's just a matter of filing down the side. If H22 is anything like H6, and it is because they are essentially the same part, they're just reversed. One goes on one side and one goes on the other. 6 goes on one side, 15 goes on the other, right? I mean, that's, that's how it works. Um, is I've got 20 minutes left or something. It's too long, too far from 1 o'clock to just end, I guess. Okay, well now I've got 4 H-22s. Saying, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is, I'll show this to you. Those of you who have already seen this, you'll see it again. Is these are the parts for the engine, and I've got H-29 cleaned up. I've got the engine blocks cleaned up and actually assembled. And today I did 9, 6, 11, and 22. And now I'm going to do, I think I'll see if I can get 15 done. These are essentially the same, as I said, as H6, and they looked simple, but then they turned out not to be. For some reason, these little screw just left little knobbies on the ends of these parts, and they didn't come off completely. So when I'm done with all of this, um, I'll be working on cleaning up the whatever spilled water all on the floor of the basement, and getting rid of the wet cardboard, maybe moving the fan to another spot, depending on how well it's drying so far. Um, yeah, it's not it isn't how I was planning to spend my early afternoon. I wasn't planning to spend it drying the basement, but best laid plans, as they say, often go awry. And this wasn't even a plan. It wasn't well laid at all. It was just a not plan. It was an unplanned, unexpected, unwelcome, really annoying event. And I get to go upstairs with a bunch of wet cardboard and, oh, why do you have all that wet cardboard? And I said, I don't know. It was dry and it didn't smell bad, and it wasn't flopping around and you know falling apart. So I thought, well, why not? What better thing to do with dry cardboard, especially it's an intact box with something inside of it. What better thing to do than soak it? Mm, Yeah, why not? Why not soak it so that I've got wet, floppy, falling apart cardboard with the stuff inside of it thankfully, except for one small box, but I think the contents of that box are okay. Except for that, you know, why not? Why not just soak the cardboard and make a mess of it? I didn't have a mess to clean up, so there. Now I made one. Gave me a purpose in life for the rest of the morning and the early afternoon is cleaning up this mess. Grumble, grumble, grumble. I am going to be grumpy all day. And no doubt other people in the household are going to be grumpy once they find out what happened and assist in diagnosing the problem and resolving it. What else can happen? Hmm. What else is going to happen today to make it a happy Friday? So I'm hoping that those of you who might be watching or listening to this, if anybody ever does, that you don't have a water on the floor of your basement that you need to be cleaning up. I hope that isn't part of your day today or whenever it is that you might be paying attention to this. I know I've said it enough now that everybody knows what's happened and we don't know why, it happened. So after mainly getting things dried and hoping that there hasn't been too much damage to anything, to look forward to trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. And there's one H15. Yeah, the next parts after that are H14. This is an H. This is an H14. It's very similar to H11. The thin pipe got way too much screw on it. I don't know if it's misaligned or not. I'll find out on Monday when I come back to this. I'm not going to find out today. I'm going to finish H15 and then be done with it for today. I wish they were all like H22. Those are really easy, but they're not. They're almost all like H11. You got 6 more of those little pipey things to fix. Well, as I'm getting closer and closer to the end of the stream, I'm getting grumpier and grumpier. Probably getting low blood sugar. The caffeine from the coffee, I can't say is particularly helping. So what's been the success today? The success today is that I actually got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I got 12 pieces once I'm done with this one, prepped, by, filing and sanding the screw attachments and the mold seams, and I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 more to go. Some of the ones 6 of them, I'll be working on these on Monday. 6 of them are really not are going to be difficult because they're these really thin, fragile, pipe-like, um, pieces that are they're just very fragile and they're messy. And they are not well, the H-11 was really messy. It was surprisingly not good. Surprisingly not good in terms of its construction. We'll see how the other 6 are. I'm going to I don't know. I'm not even gonna guess. They might be easier, they might be better made, they might be worse. It'll be something to look forward to, come back to on Monday and say, what am I dealing with here on H14 and H8 and H5? I don't know the numbering system. I don't know why, what order they were made in. As I've discovered, you've probably seen this before. Once all of the really tedious sanding, filing, and sanding is done, things actually can sometimes look like they're moving along hmm, fairly quickly, at least moving along, as opposed to what's happening here, which is not moving along. You don't see anything. All the stuff that I'm doing is actually too small to show up on camera very well. Getting rid of little screw attachments and little seam lines and things are very they're not easy to see, which makes you say, well, why are you bothering if it's not easy to see? That's a good question. Why am I bothering if they're not easy to see? Why don't I just follow my own advice, which is when you display your model, don't let anybody get within 18 inches and keep the lighting low. And then no one would see this. They wouldn't see the screw attachments and the little lines and little the little flaws in the model, in the molding, and if it can't be seen, if you can't see it, it's not there. So why? I don't know. No, with this particular model, it was a gift. It was a gift from a family member, and I really, and I told the story about how my dad was learning how to fly these in World War near the end of World War II. The war ended before he finished cadet school, and they just said, "Nope, don't need you anymore. Don't need people flying these planes. We're just going to scrap the planes and scrap you." Didn't say that, but you know, go home now. And he did, but you know, we heard stories about him learning how to fly a P-38. So there's sort of a family thing about a P-38. And then my brother bought this really expensive 1/32nd scale P-38 model, I don't even want to know how much. Is probably, way more than I would pay. And so I want this to look, I want this to be a good model. I want it to look really good. So I'm going to be experimenting with different paint application and coatings so that the decals don't look like decals, but look like they're actually painted on. And because of all the travel stuff that's happening this year, this might take a while. When I started the what was it? Was it the GT 350? I said this could take all year to do, and it didn't. I finished it some time ago and actually got a submarine built between then and now. But this model is going to take a long time. As you can tell, it's taking a long time just to get to the point where the parts are even close to being ready for assembly, much less actually being assembled. Well, I'm pretty much finished for the day. I'm just There's just a little bump here that I'm trying to get rid of. My hand's cramping up. Huh. That's another sign that it might be really close to time to be finishing because I can't hold on to a part anymore with a hand cramp. That's a signal that, see what I mean? Wow. I want everybody to watch our Dungeons and Dragons show, Dice and Dungeons. Catch it on YouTube. Listen to it as a podcast. It's really amazing. Our DM has created an amazing world, created all sorts of situations for our characters to get into. We play our characters well. Okay, we take our characters very seriously. We don't just play at them, we become our characters, which is a pretty cool thing to do. So it's actually not just a basement game, it is a show, and it's worth your while. So this particular stream is just well, I've told the story of that before, and I'm not going to tell it again today because I'm really starting to get kind of weary. Um, but on Monday, I'll tell you why the stream is happening if I remember to do that, because it has to do actually with our Dungeons and Dragons show, even though what I'm doing now isn't having anything to do with it. Um, the stream does. So watch our show. What is this little bit here? This little bit is on here too. I need to check the other ones. It's just the excess little bits of plastic right there on the bottom. I'm going to go back to H6 just in case. Just in case H6 has the same issue that H15 had. Yeah, it kind of does. It's just a little nubbin of plastic right here on the bottom of the center. It's weird. There's a mold, just a molding flaw that is inherent in all of them. On the bottom where it doesn't show, but what it would do is it would keep the part from fitting properly. And there's more it was more prominent on the other parts than it was here, but it was a good thing I came back to check because otherwise the parts wouldn't go. Okay, so move the empty box out of the way. Show you the parts as parts. These I did last stream, and today I got these, and these prepped, meaning that I've got the screw off, the screw attachment sanded down, and I got the flaw in the molding, where the molds didn't quite match up right. I got those done. And on Monday, I'm going to be doing 14, 36, 8, 5, 18, 33, and the little bits that are in this box. At least I'll be moving along as much as I can, all in an effort to get the parts for the engine. All of these come together. And I'll need to be looking at whether I paint them before I assemble them or assemble them and then paint them. You're not really quite sure. Um, yeah, it doesn't tell you what color to paint these. I'm assuming it's light gray. Most of the engine is painted light gray. These are painted light gray. These ones that go on the sides here. So these parts go on, and then you look at them later, and they're not there anymore. I don't know. I don't know. Just have to see. A lot of these will just be hand painted. They'll be brush painted. Okay. But yeah, I'll be test fitting all of it before I paint it, and then just to see what the best way to paint them is and what needs to be painted. Okay, like because the inside of this is metal black, which might be steel. I bought an alternative color just to test them. Okay, and it goes inside of the top of the engine block up here. I can just show you a thing. These go in. This goes in like this. I guess this way. Can only go in one way, maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah, like this. Okay. So the inside of this is painted metal black, but I don't know if the outside of this needs to be painted something like whether it's going to show or whether it gets covered up. It looks like it actually gets covered up with these. I think this goes across the top like that, so that yeah, so that the outside of this, the part that isn't the V, um, the part that isn't the V doesn't show. Okay, that's why I like to fit these things beforehand, so that I can say that when I paint this, okay, this part out here doesn't need to be painted, just the inside of it needs to be painted because it gets covered otherwise. Similarly, the inside of this doesn't need to be painted because only the outside shows. So I'm going to get one of these assembled, and then, as I keep saying, it gets put into all these mounting brackets and things like that, and then attached to the landing gear pod, the landing gear cabin, and then all of that gets buried. This thing gets buried inside the pylon, and the engine then and all the detail of it seems to disappear. And that's why I want to keep one of the engines out if I can, and just have this stuff, the stuff around the engine. Okay. Um, it's like, look, there's like an oil filter and a bottom that goes on the bottom of the engine, and then it just gets assembled here and it disappears. So when I get to that point, I'll keep saying it. When I get to the point of having one of these entire assembled and put inside the pylon, I want to see how much of this actually is visible. What if any of this is visible, and then try to replicate those parts. Um, just replicate those parts so that I can have one of these engines aside for display. And this goes on and on for a long time. So even if when you get to the very, very end here, and I'll have to get down to the very end, even if something is visible here, you can see it's all disappeared. The only thing that looks like that is visible at all is this part right here and the propeller shaft. That everything else is covered up. And even back here, if you were to see it from inside here like that, there's this thing that goes over the top of it that covers that as well. So there. Um, yeah, I'm going to put this like this. I'm going to have my last bit of caffeine. Say thanks for watching and putting up with all of this. I'm going to go do some more cleaning up of the mess that I discovered when I walked down here this morning. See you on Monday. See you Monday.